Here's a quote from the book The Crown of Life, written in 1869. If a lie is only printed often enough, it becomes a quasi-truth. And if such a truth is repeated often enough, it becomes an article of belief, a dogma, and men will die for it, end quote. Now, this has been reduced down throughout the years to a more familiar phrase. If you tell a lie often enough, it becomes true. Elites throughout history may not have invented the concept, but they sure have mastered it. From Lenin to Goebbels, from Obama to Biden, the elite left has mastered this mechanism of lying to achieve their political goals. Oftentimes, the biased press praises left-wing lies while accusing and condemning those on the right for lying. The left is to lies as fish are to water. We combat lies with facts in tonight's preamble. We remember the late Senator Reid lying about Mitt Romney not paying taxes for a decade. It was a lie before Romney threw away the election to Barack Hussein Obama. It was a lie after Romney threw away the election to Barack Hussein Obama. But the left wing celebrated and promulgated that lie leading up to and beyond 2012's election. Speaking of Barack Hussein Obama, when Obamacare caused people to lose their health insurance plans by the millions, President Obama claimed he had warned Americans that certain insurance plans might get canceled. That was a lie. In fact, he had said precisely the opposite. Obama said repeatedly that Americans could keep their plans if they liked their plans. 1/6 of the U.S. economy has been a basket case ever since the Democrat Party, a party that pushes socialism, fixed health care. The New York Times claimed that Obama's brazen lie was, quote, additional explanation. And the guy who used graphic language when Chief Justice John Roberts turned himself into a pretzel to make Obamacare legal by calling it the biggest tax increase in American history, that guy, Jonathan Capehart, at the Washington Post, here's how he excused Obama's lie. He said it really wasn't a lie. It was rather a, quote, overstatement. Capehart then went on to argue that George W. Bush was the real presidential liar. And that leads us to Whoopi Goldberg. For those of you who don't know, Ms. Goldberg is one of the left-wing hosts on The View. These hate-filled women spend their days hammering conservatives, Republicans, and anyone who doesn't agree with their left-wing extremism in and out of government, who are working to destroy the United States and our constitutional protections. In a jaw-dropping statement that is emblematic of the American left, Whoopi Goldberg claimed that the Holocaust wasn't about race. She claimed that the Nazis and the Jews were merely two white groups fighting each other, an example of man's inhumanity to man. And most of this audience, who are not historically illiterate, as the American left is, knows that Hitler sought to exterminate the Jewish race. Hitler believed it was the duty of what he called the superior Aryan race to conduct that extermination. Many others in the audience know that the Jewish race dates back to the great-great-grandkids of Abraham and Sarah, the 12 tribes of Israel. In a short but clear article, the Daily Wire's Ian Haworth describes how vacuous, stupid, and dangerous Whoopi Goldberg's comments are. Haworth writes, the reason some prefer to dilute the Holocaust into being raceless is because the Holocaust has become a convenient worst-case scenario tool to present at the end of every slippery slope argument, end quote. He then capped off his analysis with this, quote, but would the same be accepted for any other group or tragedy? Would Goldberg accept the erasure of the African-American experience at the center of the eternal horror that is slavery, for example? Likely not, end quote. You know, that is so true. Would any American with a conscience accept that slavery that happened in America was merely an example of man's inhumanity to man, and in so doing, remove the target of the atrocity, Black Americans? Of course not. And we shouldn't let committed left-wingers in America, like those in The View, get away with trying to do that to the Jewish people. There's one more argument I'd like to highlight from Ian Haworth's piece. Haworth was pointing out the Nazis knew their extermination of the Jews was a genocide on the Jewish race. Hitler admitted as much in one of his speeches. Haworth reminded us of another component of Adolf Hitler's game plan. In his Treatise of Hate, Mein Kampf, Hitler wrote, the national state must set race in the center of all life. Now, who does that sound like to you? If you said every CRT pusher in this country, you'd be right. If you said it sounds like Nicole Hannah-Jones, the hate-filled creator of fake history and the 1619 Project, you would be correct. If you said it's every government official in the Joe Biden regime pushing equity, making race the center of all things, you would be 100% spot on. Of all of those who are pushing divisions in our country, by making us hyper-focused on race from Whoopi Goldberg to Joe Biden, these people are right in line with the man who wrote, quote, "The national state must set race in the center of all life," Adolf Hitler. And like Hitler, those who push this left-wing extremist ideology are enemies of the United States of America. Quick, somebody wake up the GOP.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.